Hey guys, it's Nerds and Roses here, and we are continuing Trick and Treat. The first chapter was very short. It was more like an introduction, I believe, and so we are going to get into this. I have my mood lighting, mostly because it is very dark and only the laptop is lighting my face. But let's just get right into it. Interlude. Before night falls. Whew. It is a day like any other, so normal that it was almost painful. The only special thing that could be said about it is that it's October 31st. Alright, Halloween. Far were the memories when I was a kid and went out with my friends to ask for sweets from house to house. Oh, we're not a kid anymore. Okay. Just remembering it made me sigh. I feel nostalgic. Some things were better when I was a child, or at least seems like that. There were some who had good costumes, whether superhero or monsters. My friends and I, on the other hand, had to use our imagination. Creativity was our costume, you could say, no matter how funny it could sound. I remember that my mother once painted red my face and told me, "You will be the devil." But it seems only she saw it that way. When we went from home to home, everyone said I was the Tomato Man. But those things didn't matter to me, since we always had a good time. If I asked for candy now, even if I had the best costume, I'm sure no one would give me any. Except perhaps a scolding for acting like a child when I am 17 years old. But anyway, I can't stay in the past. I must live in the present, no matter how little exciting that may be. Back to reality. We are a group of friends who don't have any plans for today. We are still not old enough to go to a disco. And I doubt guys as us would have any luck in that environment. So they're all grown up now, and they're all still friends, it sounds like. The other option would be to go to a party, meet girls, and have fun. Everything perfect, except that nobody has invited us. Not being popular has its disadvantages. Hey Axel, let's have a couple matches. What do you say? My friend Steven called my attention while playing with the game console. Rush Red. I believe that's what the game is called. A fast and quite complicated fighting game for me. I wonder when this is set. I don't know if it's because of the way they're talking. It just doesn't, they don't seem like 17-year-olds. I would normally agree to play with him, but for some reason, I don't feel in the mood today. I have no desire to play now. Like, who talks like that? I replied with discouragement. I almost feel bad for not doing it. I almost feel bad for doing it. Boring. The AI is no rival for me. They all have the same voices because I don't know how to do guy voices. Like, just normal guy voices. Steven said with confidence. That you're playing on normal difficulty does not help your argument. I don't feel like losing, but if you want, you can challenge to Alfred, I said, leading the attention to my other friend. I don't know how to play that, answered Alfred, doubting for a second. He is sitting behind the PC, but it seems that he isn't doing anything interesting. The screen only shows a lot of text. I think he is in Wikipedia. Hey, don't you have something more fun to do? I asked with discouragement, without even thinking about what he was reading. Alfred looks at me surprised. The actual problem of society is that people are not interested in discovering their history. He is one of those pseudo-intellectuals always looking for any rare information to appear smarter than others. When we forget our past mistakes, we are doomed to repeat them, he added later. What are you talking about? This village is small, and its story is not interesting at all. Nothing outside of the normal has ever happened in it. Alfred laughs mockingly after hearing that. Your ignorance is worthy of praise. He pauses, filling his chest with pride. The very fact that it is a small town is the reason it's full of mysteries. Did you know that 20 years ago, on this date, a man disappeared? So, what about it? I ask, without being impressed or even interested in the least. Things like that happen all the time in all places. As I thought, you don't know the history despite living in this very place, Alfred said while adjusting his glasses in an arrogant gesture. There is a legend behind the disappearance. That is what I was reading. After listening to him, I looked back at the computer screen with curiosity. It's then that I noticed that it was not Wikipedia, but some other page. Come on, read this and learn a little, Alfred said, inviting us to read what was on the screen. Both Stephen and I moved closer to read it. Town of Abingdon, Oxfordshire Country, 1994. 20 years ago. So, okay, it's 2014? Alright, pretty recent. I came to this town with only 4,000 inhabitants to support them in an investigation. Truth is that never in my life have I seen something this strange. I won't say your typical detective-ish nonsense that I have seen thousands of strange things in my life. I've seen many crimes, yes. Some difficult to solve, but all of them were human. Even if you don't know how they managed to perpetuate the crime, you know that they are people like anyone else. In this case, I don't think I'm able to say the same thing. Truth is that I can't understand what happened. I feel like I clicked. Did I click? Boop. I was called for the disappearance of a man named Matthew Graham. 23 years. Single. The last time he was seen, he was returning home from a Halloween party. What? Sorry, I started to think maybe this was one of, from the interlude, but that was still us, so. He had drank alcohol, but was still sober. At least, that's what witnesses said. Anyway, this is not something which can be explained with a simple drunkenness. He apparently got lost on the way home and decided to enter the forest called Oakwood. It had rained yesterday, so the ground was wet and muddy. We could easily find his traces, which were leading deep inside the forest. Apparently, he walked for 3 hours before stopping. I say stop, but the truth is, we don't know what happened then. The tracks suddenly ended up in a clearing in the forest. And that's all. There was no evidence of struggle, no other trace, or pieces of clothing on the ground. There was no blood, no more footprints, anything else. The depth of his last footprints and the position they were in indicated that he was still walking. No point he stood still. It was as if he had vaporized in the air, with all his clothes in the middle of his walk. Obviously, I can't believe such a thing, but I can't give another explanation. The only thing I remember is that near the footprints, I sensed a faint smell of rot. However, there were no animal corpses nearby. It is ridiculous to think he suddenly started to decay and became earth. In the end, the case was closed in just 3 days. With no evidence of any kind, we couldn't say anything but that he decided to escape from the village. However, while officially there was no more to do, I couldn't sleep in peace. Thinking about what could have happened to him took away my sleep. In my mind, I thought all sorts of theories, like maybe everything was a plan developed by Matthew, but in the end they all seemed impossible. I decided to investigate more on the issue. I searched the town for similar stories, and to my surprise, I found 4 more. All young men. The story was always the same. They walked into the forest alone, disappearing without a trace. Even more curious is that all of them disappeared on the same date, October 31st. Halloween. But there is more. A detail that completely eliminates the possibility that there is a killer or kidnapper behind this, and that is the separation of the years. Roger Bacon disappeared in 1924. Mitchell Smith disappeared in 1867. Jason Black disappeared in 1813. And the worst of all, Oswald Taylor disappeared in 1707. It simply couldn't be possible. My curiosity led me to dig deeper. I thought that the answer may be in the past of the forest. It was then when I discovered that what seemed to be a simple and boring forest actually hid a great story. Before it was called Oakwood, or Oak's Forest, the place was called Witchwood. The word witch has huge similarity with witch. Really? Taking into consideration that it is an old name and language changes over time, that indicates that it was the Forest of Witches. Apparently, more than 400 years ago, the people of the village believed witches lived in the woods. Unfortunately, almost all of the information is already lost. They were stories told in voice without a properly written record. I just know that with the change of religion to Christian, people stopped seeing the witches with good eyes and began to hunt them. Apparently, the last one before her death cast a curse on the forest, which even today should continue to exist. Anyway, obviously I cannot accept something like that as the answer. In the end, I have no other choice than accepting that each one of them escaped from the village, using the legend of the forest to make it look like it was something supernatural. Have to try to get into the personalities. Interesting story. Oh no, that's me. Sorry, I get them confused. Interesting story. I didn't know that such a story was hiding in this town. I said, honestly surprised. Even if it is a lie, it managed to hold my interest. Wait, there is something more, Alfred said at the same time he scrolls to the comments. We read what is written there. A couple of comments call our attention. Both of them talk about some creature. At that time, they felt a horrible fear for what could happen to them. Well, the two comments share great similarities, but they could have been written by the same person. There are many others that deny it. Looks like many people went to the forest because of the legend, but couldn't find anything. I thought you only read these things to look more cool before the girls, replied Stephen as a joke. Alfred giggles with a little shame. Partly, yes. He admitted it. That was a secret everybody silently knew. Well, well, now we have an activity for tonight, Stephen said at the same time he makes a face overflowing with enthusiasm. What? I asked, completely lost. I thought we were just killing time. Simple. Let's go to the forest, Stephen replied without hesitation. He seemed really fascinated by the story. Are you insane? Said Alfred, unable to believe what he just heard. You only needed to look at his face to know he did not like the idea. Despite everything you've heard, you want to go? Of course. It would be a test of courage among us three, replied Stephen, full of confidence. Perhaps too much. He should relax a bit. Don't tell me you're afraid. No, why should I be afraid? Answered Alfred at the same time he folds his arms, making a false gesture of insecurity. No, false gesture of security. It's more obvious that you are afraid, Alfred. Almost as much as when you have to talk with a girl. And what about you, Axel? Don't tell me you won't come. Suddenly, Stephen asks me, at the same time looking at me mockingly. Don't tell me that you want to be the chicken of the group. I hate that tone of voice he used. I will never give you that, I said without thinking, showing a confident smile and look. Well, let's not say more. Take your coats, backpacks, flashlights, and some food. We are going to the forest, Stephen said, full of energy. Yeah! All of them said. We three said in unison, as if we were going to have some kind of a private party, not really knowing what we were doing or what we were going to find. 2:13 a.m. Alright, I'm gonna go ahead and end that episode there. I'm assuming this is the beginning of a new chapter, but if you're still watching this, thanks so much for sticking around. Don't forget to like this video, comment down below who your favorite character so far, with as little as we know about them, and boop that subscribe button to see more videos like this in the future. And until next time, have fun, guys.